Our next speaker is Erin Hearn. Erin serves on First Unitarian's Board of Trustees and is active in our young adult group. She once lived in rural southwest Georgia and worked for Habitat for Humanity because she wanted to learn to build houses. She is currently pursuing a master's degree in positive psychology, the study of human flourishing. The title of her talk is Compassion Radiates. Please welcome Erin Hearn.
Yesterday during dress rehearsal, when I said my first line, I looked at Jeanne, and she looked like she was about to cross me off the speakers list. Jeanne is our wonderful organizer, by the way, and one of the people who helped us put this together. When I found out that the DUUCTalks this year were going to be about compassion, I was disappointed. Sure, I'm a mildly compassionate person, and yes, people have been greatly compassionate to me, but not in a way that was a story that was really worth telling. But I love to hear the sound of my own voice. So, like a good Unitarian Universalist, I grabbed Karen Armstrong's book and a journal, and I sat down for some deep self-reflection. What I learned in this reflection was actually pretty profound to me. See, compassion is great because it does give you life guidance, and compassion is so beneficial to both the giver and the recipient. But what I learned is compassion radiates in ways the people in the interaction may never anticipate. I'm going to tell a story tonight where I am a minor player, but the results of this story have impacted my life in ways I could not imagine. And the story starts about 6 years ago with a phone call. These are my parents. At this point, my mother had just retired, and my father, a perpetual workaholic, had mentioned the word retirement twice in conversation with me, so I was really pleased with his path. I had graduated college and found gainful employment. This was not a small feat. It took me a good 5 years to get a bachelor's degree. I moved to Boston and quickly realized that idealism and community organizing cannot actually pay the rent. I found a job as a business analyst, and my father was so proud every time to call and tell me that now that I was financially independent, he and my mom could start planning for their life together as empty nesters. And they really did plan. The brochures for the golfing communities in North Carolina and apartments off the coast started to line the desk, not the recycling bin. My mom talked about learning to golf, my dad talked about Vermont, and I talked a lot about the Jersey Shore house that had just enough room for me and all my friends. So when they picked up the phone that night, when it rang, they weren't expecting to hear news that was going to change their life. See, on the other line was my cousin Chelsea. I didn't really know Chelsea very well. She's quite a few years younger than me, and she grew up in California. I did remember that for one summer, she came and lived with us for a good amount of time. My parents took her to Ellis Island and brought her to a Broadway show. They even had her go to YMCA summer camp. What I didn't know in my youth was that was a respite from a very tumultuous life that she was going through. Her mother and father, who had separated, had been in and out of jail, and for the most of her life, she lived with her grandmother. She called my parents that night because she had a dream. In her school career, she'd been to 15 different schools, but she wanted to graduate from high school and have the opportunity to go on to college. In an act of self-compassion and of emotional insight that I still don't have today, she called and said, "I need help." She asked my parents if she could move from California all the way across the country to New Jersey, so she could live in their care for 2 years to finish high school and go on to college. Now, I personally thought that this was the best thing that could ever happen. I always wanted someone to entertain at vacation. Trust me, I made my mother get us matching pajamas for Christmas Eve every year, and I still do. What I didn't expect in this situation was that Chelsea would be such a pivotal part of our family. She calls home much more than I do. She's so great to my parents, and she's really like a sister to me. She was the first person I told when I was planning on getting engaged. And when I hear bad news, she's also the first person I call. And I know that I'm on her list as well. I'm supposed to be the older sister. I'm quite a few years younger, but in reality, Chelsea is an inspiration to me. See, she's a person who followed her dreams. She's a wonderful role model because not only did she graduate from high school, in just a month, she'll be graduating from college. And while there, that little piece of compassion that my parents had for her has radiated. She's a resident assistant, which means she stays in the dorms and helps people with their struggles in college. One summer, she volunteered for a first-generation college student summer camp where she helped people who came from her background transition from their senior year of high school to college. She's actually the student body president, and she's really nervous because she's preparing for a speech during commencement, and I promised her I would give her some coaching. It's easy for my parents and Chelsea to see how their act has really influenced their lives. I think what they sometimes miss is the way how it's really affected me. See, when I saw Chelsea come to our house, and I realized how much flourishing she could actually do in the right environment, I realized that every single student who has a dream of college should be able to make that a reality. So I quit that well-paying job in Boston, and I moved here to Dallas, Texas, where I work for Uplift Education. Uplift Education is a high-performing college prep charter school in this area. 100% of our students get accepted to college, and most of them come from backgrounds very similar to Chelsea's. I'm the manager of Road to College Special Programs, which means I'm in the Road to College department, and I help ensure this success. My parents' act of compassion really helped me find my calling, and I'm forever grateful for that. But I believe that one act of compassion affected them and Chelsea and the Keene State and me and the 1,200 alumni that have graduated from Uplift and the 12,000 students that are now in our network. So I want to leave you with one thought. If you think about compassion and you think like I do, that you don't have a real story to tell or a story that's worth telling, I want to remind you that you don't always know how your acts of compassion can radiate throughout your community. Thanks.